welcome to our video about our shoulder mobility test video. Shoulder joint is one of my favourite joints. It is such a versatile, there's so many angles and movements that we can get out of it. It's my favourite joint. It's very similar to your hip joint. It's a ball and socket joint, so you get all the movement you would get out of your hip, but you've got the extra of your shoulder blade being in there as well, that can protract, retract, it can elevate and depress. It just allows an extra reach in certain ranges. Brilliant. So we can come forwards, we can come backwards, side to side, we can go completely circular, and also with your humerus in the socket there, we can rotate within that socket as well, like we can in your hip. But like I say, shoulder blades, they can open up, they can come back, they can elevate and they can retract. So arm-wise, we can really open up those shoulder blades, get an extra reach in there. So we can protract, we can retract, and overhead, again, we can elevate them to allow an extra reach and depress them. Fantastic joint. So again, because it's a complex joint, we have got 3 tests that we want to run through to see what your joint health is like in those shoulders. So test number 1, okay, these are all on the floor. So test number 1, you want to lie yourself down, nice and tall, nice and long. And we're going to test your overhead reach. So what I want is thumbs, and what you're going to do, you're going to keep your arms nice and straight, take them overhead, and see if we can touch the floor above your head. What you don't want to do is cheat, so all that movement wants to be coming through those shoulders, not through your lower back. So you want to keep that rib cage, don't let it flare up. Keep your rib cage down, thumbs overhead, and see how close we can get to that floor. If you touch the floor, that's a decent range. But like I say, it's that how you feel. If you're feeling that's tight, then again it's an area we may need to work on. Next bit, we're going to look at some rotation. So you're going to bring your elbows out so they're level with your shoulders, and you've got a nice 90 degrees at your elbow. And what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and rotate forwards. See how close to the floor we can get with the palms of those hands. Do not let these shoulders come up though. So again, to have a warm up. So again on this one, go through a couple of goes just so we can actually have a nice little warm up. Trying to keep in neutral, don't let that back arch over the arch. Warm it up. Same with this one. Rotate down and up. Get those rotator cuffs now that anchor that shoulder in. Get them warmed up and see how close to the floor we can get before those shoulders start coming off. Next one, it's all part of the same test, but your next one is then to rotate upwards, and we're going to try and touch the backs of those hands on the floor. So there, that's your test number 2. See how we go with that. And get a little response, see how that feels, what do you sense through those shoulders. And then the next one is we're going to go, so we've gone supine, now we're prone, face down. This time we're going to arms by our sides, thumbs towards the floor, and keep your nose or your forehead on the floor, and we're just bringing those arms up as high as you can. But obviously if we take our head up, we start getting into that back extension position, and that doesn't help. We want to get all the tests through that shoulder. So up as high as you can, and see how that feels. Do we feel tight? Again, you want to be getting up to perhaps about a 45 or more. But through all those tests, if on any of them you're starting to feel a little bit tight, then you just go over to there's plenty of mobility stuff, and there's one that's got shoulders in there. Find it through your workout page and run through that for a few weeks. But I hope that helps. Get in touch again, comment in the group if you need any more advice. Hey, Greg here with another mobility test for you. This one now we're onto the spine. So this is a fantastic group of vertebrae that literally start at the base of your skull all the way down to your pelvis. Mainly it is, we go through flexion and extension through this joint. But if you imagine it's one long snake, you want to be able to move smoothly all the way from sort of the top to bottom. So your neck is pretty much the cervical section of your spine. You then go into your thoracic, which is pretty much what attaches to your rib cage, and then your lumbar part, your lower back part, is what's underneath that rib cage. And all those three areas we want to be able to move really smoothly. What we're going to do with these tests, they're going to be two tests. First one, they're both sort of visual tests. Your first one is going to test how much flexion and extension we've got throughout the whole spine. And we're just going to get into, most of you probably have heard of this exercise. It's the cat and cow exercise. So we really, what we want is to get you, where's it going? We want to get you into that 4-point box position. So we want your knees underneath your hips, your hands directly stacked underneath those shoulders. And we want to start off what's called neutral. So a neutral position for you is just trying to get nice and long from the tip of your head, looking straight down, all the way down to your tailbone. Imagine that your tailbone right at the bottom there. So that 4-point position there, nice and long, that's my neutral. From there then, we can go into flexion, which is your cat. So you want to push your back up, bring that chin into your chest and see what feedback you're getting. So visually, am I getting a nice round hump there? But am I feeling tension throughout that back? Now, if you're someone who works at a desk all day, you will find that the upper part of that back, the upper part of your spine is pretty much in flexion all day long. So you might find that the hump, the cat part, is easily done. But then what we're going to do, we're going to relax through your tummy there, drop that down, arch yourself down, bring that head up, and see if we've got a nice smooth curve arching downwards. If you are somebody who's at a desk all day, you can do this as a nice little exercise, sort of before and after your workout. I would spend a bit more time in this dumped out cow position, so we can combat all those hours spent in the other. But you basically want to be able to smoothly go through those moves, and we're going through extension and flexion. And like I say, visually, does it look nice and smooth? Is it moving nicely? Have you got a good amount of arch both ways? But also the feedback you get, in which position do you feel perhaps a little bit more tension? And if that's the case, you then need to look at doing a bit more mobility stuff, and maybe look at some Pilates, yoga, that kind of thing. So that's our flexion and extension. The next test is a nice rotational test. So, ideally what we want, you want to grab yourself a pole or a stick, a mop, a brush, something like that we're going to take over our neck and rest on our shoulders. That's so we can really visually see how much rotation we've got. We've also, I would like you to sit down, ideally on a chair or something where you're going to get about 90 degrees at your hip, 90 at your knee. This is a little bit too high for me, so I'll just come up on my tippy toes. And yeah, this stops us. If we're going to do some sort of rotation stood up wise, then you'll see as I sort of rotate around, I can take a lot of that rotation through my knees, through my hips. It's very hard to isolate that spine, whereas if we are in a seated position, and as long as when we're rotating, your knees aren't going side to side, you want to really plant those feet, get those knees as they are, and we want to rotate side to side. And again, like the other test, we want to warm it up, warm that spine up, and see how far we can get. Getting round to sort of 85, just before sort of say that 90 is good. But again, you've got that visual test, and also that feedback from those muscles around your spine, are you feeling quite tight? So bar-wise, pole-wise, you want to rest it just under, it's your C, your cervical 3. There's a knobbly part in your neck. Make sure you're underneath that and the bar is resting on the fleshy part of your upper back and your shoulders. Just nice and wide with your hands. And we'd like to say, if you can get a friend or a partner to just look down as you're doing it, to just see what angles we're getting through that stick and see how close to that 85, 90 we can get. And again, you'll know straight away if you're quite tight in that rotational movement. And again, there's plenty of stuff we've got on the site that can help you with that, and we've got plenty of experts that can work on that. But I hope that helps. Questions, pop them on the group or get in touch with us and we can give you all the info you need to improve that mobility. But like I say, with so many of you working from home or at desks, spine-wise, we really need to look after that back, and we really need to start mindfully being in a much upright, better posture position whilst working. And like I say, we need to combat that extended amount of time in that flexed, rounded off position and try and get a bit more time extended. Hope that helps. Speak to you soon. Hey there, welcome to another mobility test. This one now is all about the hips. Now the hips, great joint. This is your ball and socket joint. So if you can imagine the head of your femur and then the socket of your hips, you've got that being able to go in all sorts of planes and also rotate in that socket. So if you're stood there looking straight down at your foot, bring your foot off the floor, you can get that full rotation inside to side, and that's, like I say, that ball and socket joint just rotating in the socket. But we can also, go through flexion, extension. In that way, we can go laterally, and we can go and abduct, and it can adduct, but also you've got that range where we can just go all different ways. So it's a really good, versatile joint, but also when you're testing the mobility of this, we also need a few more tests. So this is going to be a 3-test video. So we're going to test how well that joint does laterally through abduction and adduction. We're going to test how tight these inner thighs are. So this first test is a figure 4 test. So we're going to lie ourselves down. If I show you stood up, what I want you to do is cross one leg over. So you're going to keep one leg straight. You're going to cross the other one over, just above your knee. So your ankle is just above that knee, and you're going to relax that leg down and see how flat that knee lies. Okay, so on the floor it looks like this. So you're going to lie yourself down, nice and tall, and like I say, all you do is cross your leg over just above your knee and then relax that bent leg. And you want a nice level, a nice flat position there. So my right side isn't too bad. The knee would be great if it was at least in line with the other one, a little bit lower. That's not too bad on me. Then check the other side. There's always, a slight difference in size. As you can see straight away on my left side, that knee is a lot higher, so I'm a lot tighter on that inner thigh. If you're finding that both have levelled out quite nicely, then you've got good range through that inner thigh, and you should have good range on that abduction, adduction. Second one is going to be a glute. So now we're looking at your glutes, and that's been your inner thigh. We're now going to see how much flexibility you've got on those glutes that's going to work on that outer range. So what we want to do is get into a 90-90 stretch and see where we sit up on this. So what you want to do is get your leg out in front. So my knee is directly in front of that hip, and you've just got a nice 90 degree at that leg. My back leg, my knee is now out to the side from my hip, and again we've got those 90s. Now where we should be on here, and I've got a very tight outer thigh and glutes, so I really, what you want to be is to be central to the middle part of that shin. You want to be upright here. Well, as you can see here, I'm out to the side, so I'm tight and my right side is pulling me that way. So that shows me that I need to do a lot more glute work, stretching and mobility around that hip. You then spin yourself round, and like I say, you always find you're sort of a little bit tighter on one side than the other. And again, getting that 90-90 position. Again, I should be here. I should be able to drop my chest centrally over that front leg, that front shin. And I'm even worse on this side, I'm sort of at that angle, not here. So again, I need to work even more on that left side. Yeah? So for me personally, inner thighs weren't bad. I need to work on that left side a little bit. But glute-wise, I need to get into that 90-90 stretch, and any sort of crossover glute stretch I need to do more of to allow me to increase my range of movement and my mobility of my hips. The third one is just going to go through a squat. So a squat is effectively going to take our hip, that leg joint into a flexed position, and all I want you to do is take your feet shoulder width apart, slightly turn those feet out, and you're going to drive those hips back, pull those abs in, keep your chest up, and you're going to try and get your bum as close to those heels as you can. So from the side, shoulder width apart, toes slightly out, drive your hips back, chest up, and like I say, we're trying to get that bum all the way down. So I've worked on this over the past 2 or 3 years, and my mobility in this direction is as good as it's been for a long time. So that's not too bad. If you're struggling, it could be hip flexors. Again, it could be tight glutes. It also, on the squat, takes into account your ankles. So if you, when you did your ankle mobility test, if you found that you struggled getting your knees way over those toes, the knock-on effect is how low you can go in your squat. Because you can see my knees are right over the front of those toes. So it might be a case that they're hampering your squat depth rather than just your hips. But those first 2 tests will give you an idea on inner thigh, flexibility and those glutes. I hope that helps. I hope you enjoyed that. Take care, see you soon. Hey, welcome to our knee mobility test. So on this one, we're going to be testing the range of movement around the knee joint. The knee joint again is a hinge joint. We have got a little bit of movement laterally, but mainly your knee joint will extend using those quads, those big quad muscles, and it will curl, it will flex using those hamstrings. So they're the 2 muscles that we're going to test today. So you're going to spend most of your time on the floor. So we'll start off in that supine position. So lying down on your back, in shot, perfect. So you're going to lie yourself down, you're going to have both knees up, feet flat on the floor. And what you're going to do is straighten one leg out, your test leg, pull those toes up slightly, and we're going to take that leg up as far as you can until you start feeling that knee start to bend. And we're going to have a couple of goes at this because we're going to warm up, nicely warm up. Ideally you want to warm up before you do all these tests, to be fair. But yeah, have a couple of goes and see what angle you can get on that hip. So if you can get your leg up to around about a 90 degree, which is nearly about there, my hamstrings are pretty tight. If you can get up to a nice 90 degree, that is good. Anything past that is very good. So change legs. So keep that leg nice and straight. Toes slightly turned towards you. And see if there's any sort of discrepancies between legs. Sometimes you find that one leg is a bit tighter than the other. But there's a 90 degree from me. So that is not too bad. But you just want to be getting a feel for it. So you should get those muscles telling you, giving you a bit of feedback when we're going through these ranges. I mean, I know that my hamstrings are tight. even though I've got up to that 90 degrees, it is a stretch. It is literally a stretch. So I need to make sure that I start doing a bit more hamstring work. Next one is on your front in your prone position. This is where I'm going to test those quads on the front of those thighs. So we're going to lie down on your front. And what we're going to do is, again, pull those toes up. You want to try and get your heel in contact with your bum. So you're going to do it unassisted to start with. See how close we can get. Then I will allow you to take hold of that foot and see again how close we can get your heel to your bum. Again, you're getting feedback from that quad. So if you're quite close unassisted, that means your quads are pretty good. And then when you have a nice little assisted pull into your bum, if you're feeling a big stretch there, which I am, then again that means we need to work a bit more on our flexibility in terms of those quads. Second leg as well. See again if there's any difference, leg to leg. So heel into that bum, that feels okay, and then it is into that stretch, trying to get that bum touch. I'm slightly off, so I need to make sure I start concentrating a bit more on some more flexibility stuff, and maybe more mobility around my quads and also my hammies, to be honest. So a bit more Pilates, a bit more yoga needs to be put into my training schedule. Hope that helps. Any questions, pop them in the group. But that is your knee mobility test. Let us know how you get on. Hey everybody, Greg here from Realise Fit On Demand with your mobility test for ankles. So ankles are super important, not only to improve your exercise technique, especially when it comes to squats. So if you've not got that good ankle mobility, the chances of getting to a nice deep squat, you can see where my knees end up over my toes there. If we've not got that ankle mobility, you're going to struggle to get the best out of exercises such as squats. Now, ankles are a hinge joint, but they give you a little bit extra as well. So instead of the elbow, which is a strict hinge joint, the elbow just moves in one plane, one direction. So you can extend and flex your arm at your elbow, but that's pretty much all you can do. With your ankles, you've got that flex and extension. So we can point our toes, which is plantar flexion. We can pull our toes up, which is dorsiflexion. But we can also go side to side as well, which is your supination, pronation. Okay, but we can also get that rotation, so we can draw those circles with our toes. So we've got a lot more movement from our ankle than we would with, like I say, a strict hinge joint of the elbow. But what we're going to test today is your flexion, how far you can get your knee over your toe. All right. So it's called a knee to wall test. So what I want you to do, this is my wall, this is my pretend wall, the plyo box. What you want to do to start off with is get your toes touching that wall. We're just pretty much one hip width apart, stack those feet underneath your hips. Toes touching your wall, and then all you're going to do is bring those knees forward and touch the wall. You're then just going to take a little step back, probably about half an inch, and we're going to go again. Touch the wall, and you're just going to keep on working until eventually your heels start coming up, and you can't keep your heels down and touch the wall at the same time. The magic number that people band around is 5 inches. So trying to get your toes 5 inches away from the wall and still get that dorsiflexion, which is that pull up of your toe. Okay, if you're around about the 5 inch mark, that's pretty good, and then you're sorted then for that joint to get stuck into some of those exercises. So I hope that helps. Do your test, and by all means get in touch and let us know what your scores are. Well done, we'll see you soon.